Okay, so remember that they're changing my voice. They're feeling me right now. They're very jealous of me. They're very immature. A lot of the people who are doing this are people who went to schools like Columbia University, which is where the female you see on the screen went to school. And she claims she was raped in a particularly disgusting LGBT sort of way, and that she wasn't treated fairly. This is important for more reasons than one, right? This was very much aimed at me. A lot of the details are kind of, well, it's a long story, so I'm not going to kind of get into that, why that is. But I will touch on it just ever so slightly here. So you have the female who looks a certain way, right? And she's one of the more attractive types of Filipinas, but she's a crypto Jew. So basically some Jews, they often try to tell me that they use underhanded means to get in, to get these females into bed, what have you, and some of them get turned out in porn cults. I don't know that person's story, but that's like that all over the world, with every race you can think of, right? And so her judgment is affected by that process, right? So if a bad guy convinces a female to have their child, okay, then you have the product of a bad guy and a female they convinced, right? So they use that to try to tease me, right? Set is a play on words for tease, right? Horus is the archetype of Pharaoh. The true form of Horus and true form of Jesus are both the ideal man, the Son of God. We said in Psalm 19 and Revelation 19, right? The Son, the heavenly warrior defeats the beast, what have you. I'll make this very brief here. So this is the type of female that if she wasn't the offspring of somebody who thinks more like Set, right, who is more like Set, that she would otherwise date me. And so, or she'd be open to dating me. But keep in mind, she's far away. I've never seen her in my life. But I've seen females that look like her. One that worked for a church. One that went to, a school I went to in various places, right? And they use this to try to, provoke me. And keep in mind, they're hacking people's brains all the time. They're hacking victims' brains to make it so they have trouble remembering the details of their rapes. They hack disenfranchised guys' brains, trying to get them to rape. And this has been made clear to me with the abundance of evidence here. Okay, as I've noticed people looking like they're in a trance-like state. I see people on the news after they commit the mass shootings or some kind of controversial crime, like a very prolific rape or something. So we see this going on. And they've made it clear to me, they hack my brain to some degree too, and they made it clear to me that they're hacking the victim's brains, not just me. And I'm sexually harassed all the time, so they made it clear to me. The word set is like the word sex. It's not a coincidence. The word rapist is like the word racist, and so on and so forth. And Columbia University was also one of these universities where there was a high-profile series of events that has to do with the Palestine and Zionist kind of clash, and the politics around that. So, the Israeli war, in Palestine and so on and so forth. And keep in mind, they're also making it harder for me to talk. And I've made, 17,000, 18,000 plus videos. I gave great presentations in college. Okay. It's very clear that they're trying to make it harder for me to talk using technology. And they are making it harder for me to talk. It's not a coincidence that Babylon is a play on words for Babylon. And real briefly here, since, I'm just going to wrap this up by pointing out their prison process to overkill, that there's controlled opposition on the left helping them with their sick game as well. You don't just believe the victim. You go based on evidence, and you create an environment where people are smart and focused and are not dating the oppressor and these guys that are being elevated by the oppressor, like the military, the police, the Freemasons, the Boy Scout types, the squares, the church types, the mosques, the synagogues. These are people who are parts of networks that the governing class is trying to promote. So when you date them, you messed up already. They may as well be raping you. Think about it. Anyone who's not obeying God through me, who's having sex, is basically a rapist in the eyes of God. If you have any questions about that, put in the comments. Now let's look at wordplay that proves me right here. So when someone gets locked up, right, sometimes innocent people are locked up, right? Martin Luther King was locked up. You get the word inmate, right? And it's playing words for I mate. Okay, I've seen it said inmate and inmate, right? Both ways. So inmate, right? The inmate, the process, and I mate. Also, you have the cellmate, right? Cellmate. And there's a lot of homosexual activity, LGBT activity that takes place in men and women's prisons, right? Even the word cell is a play on words for, like a skin cell, the cell of your body. Okay? And also people selling their souls. You have the prison gangs, right? Prison prize on and prize son. So they're prying them. So that female on the screen, right? Before her mother could find someone who thinks more like me to have a child with, she had a child with somebody who thinks more like Set. And that's why she looks that way. And I'm not saying the looks by itself condemns somebody. Not obeying God through me condemns someone no matter how they look. But that's very apparent to me. I've studied people for years now as part of my research. Okay. And so then when that person comes in the world, she's more likely to fall into the trap that Setians are inclined to fall into, right? Her inclinations, her tendencies, right? It has to do with the absence of her reservations and inhibitions when it comes to her decision to conform. In other words, the absence of her hesitation. Instead of her being reluctant to conform and looking for someone like me, she's looking to go to Columbia University, to conform, and to marry the oppressor and to have oppressor kids and so on and so forth. Even though there's AI hacking people's brains around the clock these days. With the oppressor and a bunch of perverts and frats and social clubs and corporations. When anyone doesn't pick up on that, it's like crazy, right? Okay. So going back to the wordplay, right? You have prison gang, right? Prize, son, gang, gay, and G. G is the earth deity. G-E is the earth deity of Rome. G in Freemasonry. G is in gangster, so on and so forth. See how the wordplay comes together there. Now, for those of you who doubt that because you're idiots or something, ask yourself, why, when prison gangs are something that the state brought about? If you look at the history of prison gangs, like in Texas, it was a deal between inmates and the state to control inmates because, you know, the guards were worried about getting stabbed, what have you. And you see a lot of the rules, like the Mexican Mafia has a rule that they're not supposed to insult, you know, people in court and stuff like this. They have a certain code of conduct. So why, when that's the case, okay, is it that, you know, the 13th letter is the M? Right, which is also the M for magic and Mason. The 13, the master number, right? And the 14 letters, the N, right? So Mexican Mafia, Norteño, Nuestra family, right? These Hispanic prison gangs in California. Plus you have all this occult symbolism in Chicago. And also you have the third letter for the C, right? A, B, C, the third letter. And you have the second letter for the B, right? For the Bloods and Crips, right? So B, C, how you see things, right? And also in the BC is where a lot of this stuff took place, a lot of significant events like the founding of Egypt and the Old Testament and so on and so forth. There's a lot of connections there. That's how the game is played. In the word game is a play on words for mage. And gay in the second part of the word, I'm not gay, is me, and I'll never be gay. Okay. So the prison system, right? Custody, right? It's C-U, so, tidy, right? T-Y-D. Has, you know, phonetic sounds, tidy. So C-U, so tidy. Now, who wants things tidy, right? Well, lots of people do, but there's certain people who come to mind first and foremost, right? The rich and gays. Gays are very nitpicky. So you have these people coming out gay and behaving in a certain way, like a gay person cleaning their house or something, like trying to mimic a French maid or a maid or something, whatever, you know, tying their hair in some kind of ponytail. You can tell by the hairstyles, the various mannerisms, the behavior. And this is something that has spilled over to the general population more than ever in like the last 15 years. And Western culture itself is centered in homosexual activity, like the Met Gala fashion show, right? It's centered in that. That's why so many news outlets have these gay and gayish people. That's why Hollywood, the fashion, this is not something coming from the outside. No, this is something that goes back to the theater of Greece and Rome. Dionysus, a deity of ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater arts, and fertility, and rape, right? In fact, when I talk about Eri, Haro-Eri, and Eri, the son of God in the Igbo mythology and ancient Egyptian mythology, Haro-Eri, and how they misrepresent who that is on the internet, okay, we see it in the American flag, right? M-Eri-Can. Now, flag. Now, if we rearrange the letters, we get Eri-Can, lame, and the F word, which is a derogatory term for homosexuals, F-A-G. They're saying in their Zeus sort of change form, rape by deception system that the Son of God can only kind of express himself if he's lame and if he's gay. And they're trying to make it so I look gay. They're using technology to put red on my lips, and it's like nearly impossible to get it off. And they also have crippled me partially over the years. That's not a coincidence. And the word crip, right, is play on words for cripple. And C, ripe, and interchangeable vowels. Vowel to second word L, that despicable Canaanite deity that they pretend is God, just like Baal. And it was at odds with God in the Bible. And the followers of El manipulated, these religious texts so much that they even referred to God as Elohim, right? L-O, reproductive cycle, and him, or high magic. So it's magic art, sorcery, it's evil. It's what you expect when you see the masses of Jews were killing the few Jews doing the right thing in the story. Well, who, was responsible for the religious continuity? It was the Levites and the other Jews who were killing the righteous Jews like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Zechariah, son of Berechiah, and so on and so forth. And that is a major theme in the New Testament where Christ says, you have done the wrong thing. And Jeremiah also said to them that the lying pen of the scribes has handled the word of God falsely in Jeremiah 7 or 8, somewhere around there in the book of Jeremiah. Okay, so I'm way over time here. I'm going to have to leave it there. But there's no shortage of words related to the prison system. And there's no shortage of ideas that are gay. And these people are like the who's who of the biker community, of the street gangs, of thugs, okay? And there's also, the military is gay activity through the roof, all the homosexual assaults in the military, unbelievable amount, okay? The Boy Scouts, the churches, right? The center of Western culture is gay. Otherwise, they wouldn't have tolerated all this stuff. That's the only way. And so the European elite are a bunch of gay and gayish people. Look at how they dress. Look at the wigs, right? So as we look at this, some guy on his way to rape a kid might be like, everyone knows this. But it starts with us talking about it and pointing to reality, not the mage game. The gay person points to the game. Someone who thinks straight and mans up and insists on reality and virtue and righteousness, right? Virtue means man, points to reality and says, this is what's going on. Let's get together and solve it. Everyone else is like bending themselves over in their kids. As we move more and more into a society where they have more technology to hack your brain remotely, they can make it so you are distracted while your kid is raped, and then you forget your kid was raped. They can make it so your kid forgets the details. They can hack people's brains who don't even want to rape kids and have them rape kids and then scapegoat them while they're raping other kids. There's all kinds of sick things they can do, and they're doing those things right now, and they're refining their process right now. Don't have kids no matter what. Thank you.